Your stories, your scars, physical scars, or probably the scars for your soul, they are important for you because they are the evidence of sometimes difficult or sometimes very sad stories that you have in your life. These scars make you beautiful because they make you strong.
Hi everybody, welcome back to another episode of Ship It and Sip It. I'm John. I'm very excited to have Olya Kolyada here in the studio with us today. She is a QA engineer at Paralect, and she's been with us since 2017, and she's also a mentor and lead QA engineer at our Startup Summer program, which helps to build products for the Paralect Accelerator. And that's why I'm excited to have you here today. We just had our demo day last week, so Olya's here to tell us about that project, what she loves about mentoring QA students, and much more from her story. But first, she's picked a lovely Riesling for us to drink today. Olya, why did you pick Riesling for us?
Yes, at first I planned to bring the other wine, but unfortunately I wasn't able to find that wine at the stores. So that's why I brought my second favorite wine. It's a German wine. I think that it's tasty, fresh in some way. And the most important point that it's quite cheap and the price is not biting.
And as you can see, we're well prepared to enjoy white wine here at the office with these perfectly matching glasses. So, well, I love the Riesling. It gives us a sense of sort of, it still feels like summer. It's a perfect picnic wine for a hot day. So, cheers.
Cheers.
All right, so tell us a little bit about the demo day. It was just last week on Thursday. How did it go for your team? Were there any problems that you had to squash right before the product was presented?
Oh, yes, the demo day. It was emotional and nervous as usual. And the demo day is not just the demonstration of the products that the guys were developed and tested, but it's also the students' last day in Paralect in the company. It feels like, it's the last day in the role of the students. So for me, it was also the same day, because it felt like it's the end of summer camp shift.
Yeah.
So that's why it is so. And about the demo day, I think that everything went great. There were no problems at all, thanks God. There were 3 projects this year. 2 of them were web projects and 1 mobile application. And I think that all of these projects have potential, and I hope that they will be successful.
Yeah, so you were working with the team on Moodahub. Yes. You can go back to an earlier episode of the show where I talked with Sarah, the founder of Moodahub, get the backstory on that idea. And today we'll talk about sort of the other sides, the QA side, as well as what it was like to develop it together with the students. So, but first, let's go all the way back to the beginning of Startup Summer. This year was the second year that we've had not only developers, but also a QA team. And you were a leader in that sort of educational process, both in terms of recruiting the students and being a mentor for them throughout the whole course. So, tell us how did you find the students this year, and what was the recruitment process like?
You're right. It was the second QA Startup Summer. And by the way, it was the first Startup Summer that was held in 2 countries, in Belarus and in Poland. We were looking for people in both countries, in Belarus and in Poland. I don't remember exactly what ways of advertising we used, but I do remember that we had a lot of mentions in the Telegram chat. We had a lot of posts in Instagram, in LinkedIn, and Twitter about what people we are looking for, right?
Yeah.
second part.
Who are you trying to attract to the course?
So the first requirement was to find some special people. I understand that it probably sounds a little bit strange, but I hope that you will understand me because we both work in Paralect.
Yeah.
And we have such a specific feature that we are always looking for a special, and we are looking for special and bright people who can join us and complete us. The second requirement was to find people who already understand what testing is, what QA engineer should do, how to work on the project, how to work in a team. So it was required that the future students should know how to work on the projects and should be interested in this thing. And the third requirement was the good knowledge of English. Intermediate level was enough for us.
All right. And how many applicants were there this year? I saw on some of Karina's interviews with the different students that did make it in, some of them, it was already their second time applying.
Yes.
So
we had 2 boys, and there was their second try. They tried.
Really willing to get in, yeah.
So about the applications, there were 237 applications.
Oh my goodness.
But this number is not scary at all, because last year we had about 300 applications.
For how many spots?
6.
Only 6 spots. Okay. All right. So how did you sort of whittle this number down and try and find the best 6 for the teams?
And the main requirement for the application was to complete the testing task. And this task was about the mobile application that was fully invented. It didn't exist. And we described briefly the requirements for this application. We described user stories, and there was also a small mockup. And the main task from the applicants was to create a bunch of checklists or a bunch of test cases that should be enough for future testing. So we checked 237 applications, and we chose the best ones. We chose 40 applications, and we scheduled the interview for each of them. So briefly, I can say that the selection process consisted of 2 phases, the testing task itself and the interview.
And how long did the interview usually last with each person?
It lasted 1 hour.
Oh.
Sometimes it was even shorter.
Is there anything else you'd like to share just about the group of students as a whole that made it in this year? Any highlights or stories from just at the beginning?
They are all great guys, and I'm happy that 4 of them will join our campaign.
Fantastic. All right, so the course starts off with 2 weeks of lectures. What were you hoping that the students learned in those 2 weeks that they didn't already know?
We have 2 weeks of lectures, and there was a lecture a day. And the topics for these lectures were very different. For example, there were a lot of topics about the testing itself, like testing levels, testing types, test documentation, and so on. The second topic was about technical things. We talked about API testing, databases, mobile testing. And the third topic was connected to soft skills. And probably these lectures were the most important, I think. And we discussed a lot such things as how to communicate with the client, how to work in a team, how to cope with different conflicts. After the lectures, we usually have had some discussions, some home tasks, and so on. And I think that we really needed this period of 2 weeks lectures, because it was like the smooth plunging into the work process, real work. Yes.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into that then. We had 6 QAs, 3 different teams, so I assume there were 2 QAs on each team?
Yes.
Okay. All right, and so what did it look like when they were put into these teams to work on the different products?
The teams are consisted of product manager, designer, dev lead, of course, was also dev mentor, dev students, QA lead / QA mentor, and QA students. And the bigger part of the team was consisted from the students, and the smaller part was consisted from the people from Paralect, from the company.
Yeah, and the development teams had already been working for some time on the products themselves. So how did you sort of onboard the QAs to the process? What did that transition look like?
Developer team has started a little bit earlier, about somewhere at the beginning of July, and QA started 2 weeks later. And we need this period so the developers can go to work much faster. And yeah, the transition was smooth. We have started from the lectures, and we have just get the guys acquainted with each other. We talked a lot about the projects themselves, and we told the QA guys about their roles, their future tasks, and so on.
Awesome. And the team that you were the QA lead and mentor for was Moodahub, as we mentioned. So at the start of that, sort of describe the situations that the QAs were in at that point. How did you kick things off? What was there to test? Was there anything sort of specific to Moodahub that was challenging for the QA team?
Yes, I was on the Moodahub project. It's a mobile application where the users can create virtual wardrobes that consist of their clothes, and then they can create stunning outfits, looks, and they can also share these looks in the feed, so the other users can like it or just can watch it, can watch their sense of style, and so on. And I love the idea of this application because I think that nowadays there are a lot of people who are interested in fashion. There are a lot of people who want to share their sense of style, their sense of passion. I think that there can be that we can have quite a big target audience, and probably I hope so that this application can be successful. Yes, and about the most challenging task.
Sure.
Yes, probably my answer will be a little bit, will surprise you a little bit, but for me, the most challenging task was not in testing. It happened on the very first stage, on the preparation stage. There was such an activity where we should choose the concrete mobile devices for the future testing. And it was challenging for me and for creative, for me especially, because I had a lot of experience in web testing and much less experience in mobile testing. It was my second or third mobile application, so I felt a big responsibility while we were choosing the mobile devices. And I wanted to ensure that we would cover all the scenarios, and we would try to find all the possible problems that might be connected with the device.
I saw the developer lead or mentor, it was Anton, right?
Yes.
He was sharing quite a bit on his Twitter about different ways that he was working with the images to try and improve the app speed and sort of make the whole thing work smoother from an architecture perspective. Was there anything specific with that sort of image recognition or handling images in the app in a dynamic and efficient way that was challenging to test?
At first, I thought, and I was prepared that there might be a lot of defects and a lot of failures. But unfortunately, or fortunately for us as for QA team, everything was okay. The developer guys and Anton, they did a great job during our work. So our work has lasted about a month and a half. And during this period, we have reported about 90 defects. And the majority of these defects were with low priority.
Well,
So developers did a really great job, and there were no fails. And I think that it means that our mobile application is very stable.
fantastic. So over the month and a half, as you got closer and closer to demo day, were there any sort of last minute crunches or interesting stories or things that you had to fix with the team right before demo day?
No.
No.
I thought about such stories.
Yeah.
Yes, the last days were nervous, but probably they were such nervous because of the demo, because of the deadlines, but the testing was really smooth. And unfortunately, I can't tell you some interesting words.
All right. Well, that's good. Okay, so looking ahead then to, we hopefully will have a similar QA course next year. Is there anything that you'd like to change about it?
I don't want to brag, but I think that this course was great, and we did have several issues during the last year, during the last course, but we have corrected all of them this year, but there is no limit to perfection.
Right.
And when we already had some thoughts what we could do better next year, what we can do better next year. For example, we can still work on our lectures. We can add more technical things to our lectures. We can discuss more API testing. For example, we technically need to discuss such things as dev tools, Postman, how to work with Postman. And it would be great to add more fun tasks and more practical tasks, so the guys, the students can work in practice with some things.
Awesome. All right, so we have a pretty good view of how the sort of QA process works within the Startup Summer. Are there any major differences when it comes to other products that come into Paralect with founders in sort of outside of Startup Summer as sort of a regular startup that we partner with in terms of setting up QA processes? You wrote a lovely blog post about this that's still on the blog. We'll leave a link to that. But are there any major differences?
I think that the main difference is in the attention to mentees to the students from Startup Summer and to QA specialists who are already working in Paralect. And I mean that QA students, they definitely require much more time and much more attention. And that's completely okay, because they are just starting their path in IT world, and they do have a lot of questions. They do have a lot of doubts, and you as a mentor should always be somewhere near them and help them on every stage or with every process. For me, mentoring QA students is like raising a child, but it will be better to say it's like raising a good specialist.
Right.
And I speak about QA specialists who are already working in Paralect. They have much more freedom. They already have more experience. Probably some people more experience, some a little bit less experience. but they can cope with some questions, with some problems by themselves. They do need help with some moments, but they require this help in less situations.
Mm-hmm. And do you have any sort of memories of being mentored when you were first in Paralect? When you joined back in 2017, was there anyone that really helped you improve your skills or navigate the projects that you came into?
In Paralect?
Yeah.
Of course, it was Julius Balker, who unfortunately is not working with us. Yes, and she's a great person, and she helped me a lot on the fintech project that I was working on during that time. It was in Tangier. Yeah, she was great.
Fantastic. And I guess within the QA team, what does continued mentorship look like at this point? I mean, we have a lot of startups that are sort of, the team here, team A, team B, team C. How do the QAs sort of handle knowledge sharing and improve each other's work processes?
You mean in our company between different products?
Yeah.
Different projects?
Yeah.
We have such activities as QA Talk, and we have about 5-6 mentors who already know what exactly a QA specialist know, and what knowledge he or she can share with us with QA department.
Well, if it works and it's short, that's perfect. All right. But in terms of your education, you came from a background of teaching language, didn't pursue that as a career. You came into IT, but do you see any parallels between sort of teaching language and mentoring young QA people?
Yes, I'm a teacher by education, and I even worked at school during my practice time at university. And I thought about it by myself. And for me, these processes have a lot of similarities. Mentoring is really like teaching. And by the way, I think that probably I can call myself a good mentor. I can call myself a good mentor. And I can do it because of my education. I studied pedagogics and psychology at university. And probably these basics helped me in such soft skills as communication, give a good constructive feedback, and understand what problems may be between the guys, between their students, and so on. So yes, mentoring is really like teaching at school.
Fantastic. And I guess, what have you discovered are the skills or tactics that make a good mentor?
First of all, it should be the ability to conduct a dialogue and the ability to communicate with completely different people. Secondly, there is such a good skill to communicate with difficult people. And I really needed this skill during preparation to Startup Summer, especially during interviews and so on. And the other skills which are also necessary, they are active listening, constructive feedback, as I said before.
And I guess, can we dive in a little bit deeper to the teaching style or how we train QAs? So I assume that you don't just tell them how to do something and they repeat what you said on their computers. So how do you guide this sort of, I assume that it is sort of discovered learning or something like that, where they're uncovering ways to do their work sort of on their own?
My secret tip is to be a good friend for them, because I am as a mentor, probably I am the closest person in the company for them. And it should be okay, for students, for mentees, to trust me and to understand that they can come to me with any question and they can ask for any help. And probably that's why we find the connection between us, and that's why they listen to what I'm talking to them and so on.
Fantastic. Well, let's talk a little bit more about your earlier history with Paralect, because it's been a long journey, but it hasn't been particularly smooth. So you can be as open as you'd like on this section. But I'm curious, just to start, what attracted you to the team way back in 2017?
It was 2017. And I was planned to create account systems for my previous place of work. And I had about 5 or 6 interviews. And the interview in Paralect was the greatest. First of all, it was the longest that I had ever had. It lasted about 3 hours. And the second point, it was the most difficult. And there were a lot of tricky testing questions. There were a lot of some different test cases, test scenarios that I should sort over. But at the same time, I felt myself like I'm in the right place. And I felt very comfortable during this interview. So I decided to join the company. I was glad that at that time when I joined, the company was not big. There were about 50 or 60 people, and they all were so smiling, so friendly, and so passionate about what they were doing. So I can say that probably I made this decision just to rely on my feelings, but maybe that's why this decision was the right one.
Mm-hmm. And can we just dig into that a little bit more? Because for those viewers that don't know, EPAM is a very large global development company. They have tens of thousands of people, different offices around the world. So with that comes a much larger corporate culture, I assume. I've never worked there, but I know many people who have. Some like it, some don't. So I'm just curious, with your experience, what made you sort of open to going from that sort of big environment to something much smaller like Paralect?
It was the great experience in EPAM, and I loved to work in this company, and it was great then to compare the big company and the small one. I worked in EPAM about 3 years. So it was a good period, and I just wanted to be in some full company where everybody knows each other, where everybody close to each other. So that's why I was looking for a small company, and I wanted to try such an experience.
Interesting. All right, so fast forward to 2021, and you had some pretty significant health problems. So what happened, and what caused your longer medical leave?
I need to drink all this thing. It will be a little bit tough to discuss. So yes, in 2021, I was on vacation in Turkey, and I broke my left collarbone during paragliding.
Oh.
Yes, so how did it happen? It was a very windy day, and unfortunately I chose the wrong paragliding company, because of such weather they should propose to me the other day, but they didn't. And I didn't understand how dangerous it could be. The accident has happened. There was the strong wind, and me and the instructor, we were with the parachute already, and the wind just lifted us, and then we hit the ground. And at first, I even didn't understand that something bad has happened, because I didn't feel any pain at all. I just started to touch myself to understand that everything is okay. And then by accident, I touched my collarbone, and I understood immediately that there was a big problem, because I felt under my fingers that there were several fragments of my bone under the TV. It was the closed fracture.
Yeah.
So there were several fragments of the bone, and there was a strange deep hollow where the collarbone should be. Yes, the instructor and the driver, they took me to the hospital there in Turkey, in Fethiye, if I remember the name of the city correctly. And the doctor said to me that it is a collarbone fracture with displacement of bone fragments. And the only treatment here was the operation, where the doctors should put these fragments together, and they should fix these fragments, this bone, under titanium plate. So yes, I had this first operation in Turkey, and I hoped that it would be the end, but no, it was to be needed.
That was my next question, was like, did you have a sense that because you ended up being on leave for quite a long time, did you have a sense of how long you would be sort of out?
Yes, at first I was told that my bone would overgrow in 5 or 6 months, and then it would be possible to take away this titanium plate from me. But in summer 2021, I was already in Belarus. It turned out that during that first operation, the doctors fixed my bone in the roll in our base. There were still small distances between the bone fragments, and so the bone wasn't able to overgrow, wasn't able to heal under this titanium plate. So next 10 years, I had 4 other operations, with the goal to make my collarbone to overgrow. And 2 of these operations were very difficult, because the doctors in Belarus already, they took the pieces of my bone in my inu. So
Hip bone? Yeah. Okay.
I don't remember how it's called, paragliding. Yes. I googled it, and it was inu something.
Ilium. Okay.
But you don't understand.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like these colors.
Yeah.
Yeah, so doctors took the pieces of my bone from this place, and then they put these pieces into my collarbone, and it's common practice. And usually after such operations, your bone that was fractured, it started to overgrow. But unfortunately, it didn't happen. Several times it didn't happen. And such operation, which I had in December last year, it was 2022. And after this operation, I got an infection. So January and February this year, 2023, were very difficult for me. And in March, during this year, I spent the whole month in the hospital, and there was the last operation. I hope that's going to be my last one. This operation where doctors saved me from the infection. So, good news. I'm alive.
Yeah.
bad news. My collarbone is still in bad condition.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, titanium plate is not for me anymore because it takes action.
Yeah.
And my bone stays thin and deformed with different small holes in it. And it means that unfortunately I will not be able to move my left arm in all the directions. But it's completely okay for me because firstly, I'm glad that I'm alive,
Right.
as I said. And secondly, I think that our organism is very smart. And probably with the persistence from my side and with good rehabilitation and with good physical exercises, so who knows, maybe my arm will be okay and I will be able to spin, to stand on the hands, to lift different ways, so who knows.
Well, I'd certainly hope that it does continue to improve. And maybe just less adventurous holidays in the future. Or still adventurous, but more safe, I guess you could say. So in terms of the team and your relationship with people here at Paralect, sort of how did they support you during this time?
Dasha Puzikova supported me a lot as a curate head. She was always in touch with me. And there were several other people who always wrote to me and who always asked how I am, how I was.
Very good. And so what were some of the ways that you sort of got through this? I guess you didn't know, as you said, you didn't know how long it would actually take. So I can only imagine that sort of every couple months there was some new setback.
Yes.
Something else went wrong. So I guess what did you learn from such an experience, or how did you manage it?
It was a very tough period, these 2 years, but probably the most difficult period was in this year, from January till April, when I already knew that I had an infection and that there could be so bad complications, very bad complications. And I felt myself like I was alone in a deep, dark well, and there was no access. My family helped me a lot, my friends, and probably when I was, probably April was the most difficult month for me. And at one moment, I understood that I was not able to cope with it by myself. I decided that I needed to visit a psychologist. So I started to visit with a psychologist, and she helped me a lot, and she's still helping me. So I think that probably that was the best decision that I had done during this tough period, this tough month.
Mm-hmm. And I guess since you had worked a lot with Startup Summer last year, and you were looking forward to coming back this year, was that sort of something that kept you hopeful in some way?
Yeah. Last Startup Summer, it was right between my operations. So yes, and this Startup Summer, it was like a good rehabilitation for me, because there were a lot of tasks. I returned from my sick leave at the beginning of May, and it was at the middle of vacations, and there were a lot of work with checking these testing tasks, with scheduling the interviews. Then you need to conduct these interviews. Then you need to discuss what students were the best ones, and so on. And it was such a period when you didn't think about your problems at all, because you have a lot of work and you loved this work.
Yeah, and I can imagine with such a long time away, 2 years is a long time in terms of technology. Things move very quickly.
Yes.
Were there any things that you did to sort of stay up to date? Were you worried about sort of losing knowledge or skills that you had learned in the previous years? How did you handle that?
Of course, I was worried that I was forgetting some practical things. I completely forgot English.
Not completely, as we can see. You're doing great.
But anyway, sorry for my silly mistakes. But I know that it is the problem. But anyway, I understood that I should concentrate on my health. And that's completely okay because my physical condition, my mental condition are more important than any work. So first of all, I should fix this part of my life. And then I can come back to work. I can, and I already did, I reread some articles. I have started to use some testing tools, which I started to forget completely. So that's okay. These skills can be revived, and that's okay.
Awesome. And is there anything else that you'd like to share about sort of coming back and diving into Startup Summer this year? Did it give you a lot more energy, or how did it help you sort of transition back into the work environment?
That the end of my tough period was completed, and that this end matched the beginning of Startup Summer. And it went great because during my 2 years sick leave, I felt a little bit that I'm just useless. And there were a lot of changes in Paralect, and there were a lot of new people in Paralect which didn't know me and who I didn't know. And I was worrying about it. But when I returned to work and when I joined Startup Summer activity, I understood that I am useful. I was useful, and I'm still useful. And creative talent was waiting for me, and it's a great feeling.
So another thing that's changed a lot, of course, recently are AI tools when it comes to product development. Are there any in the testing space that have really sort of changed the workflow in any way? Are there any ways that you guys use AI tools to test better, make better products, all of that stuff?
We still don't use any AI tools, but I feel that these changes in this sphere will be for the better, because it's definitely that AI tools can help us in test data management, for example. It also will help us to be more sufficient in some testing activities. So I think that these future changes will be definitely for the better.
Awesome. All right. And what is one thing that you used to believe about technology or testing or startups that you've changed your mind about in your career?
Can we just a little bit change this question?
Sure.
Because in the first version of your question, there was the personal part.
Or life, yes. For life, okay.
Because
you want to answer the life part?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
I want to add some personal insight.
Fantastic.
From me.
That's the reason you're here. So.
Yes. As I said, my answer will be connected to personal life, and it will be connected to these changes, this accident that happened with me. I used to, probably it will sound a little bit in a little bit childish way, and probably it will be a little bit silly. But I hope that you will understand me and you will not judge me.
They won't judge you either.
Please don't. Okay, so I used to believe that the scars on people's bodies that they are the sign of something bad, and they're not beautiful at all. And I felt sorry for the persons who had, for example, a lot of scars, or even if it was a small scar, but very notable. Anyway, I felt sorry for this awful story that probably happened for this person. But now I am such a person. I have quite a big and long scar on my shoulder, and I can't say that I have already accepted it. I think that I'm just somewhere at the very beginning of my acceptance stage, and I'm still working on it. And I'm working on it with my psychologist that the scar is okay, and we should have cried it, and so on. About a month ago, I read a great article about the scars, and I even didn't remember exactly what this story was about. But I do remember that there was a great phrase that just got stuck in my head. So the phrase, "The beauty is in struggle." And for me, this phrase is so deep, and there is such an important message. Your stories, your scars, physical scars, or probably the scars for your soul, they are important for you because they are the evidence of sometimes difficult or sometimes very sad stories that you have in your life. These scars make you beautiful because they make you strong, and yes, and you're strong and you're beautiful.
Awesome. Well, on that note, thank you so much for joining me and sharing your story. And I hope that you continue to get stronger and continue to teach the people that join Paralect in the future and to help make great products here and also, I guess, great people. So, thanks so much.
Sure. Thank you, guys.